Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Zoom session. We've got quite a few of you online already, but apparently we have about 240 people who'll be joining us tonight. So while everybody's coming on board, I just wanted to welcome you all to quite a momentous occasion for us. This is the first time we've hosted a Zoom for our consumer customers. And I personally am excited about it. I was just confessing to Mara, who you can see here, Mara with the dark hair.
No,
sorry, Joe with the dark hair. Sorry, ladies, I know exactly who you are. Joe with the dark hair and Mara with the light hair, the Filing Fairies themselves. I was just confessing that I do feel like a bit of an imposter when it comes to photo management because I talk about it a lot, but I haven't mastered the art myself. My partner at Work and Play, Jeff Hunt, he's our managing director at Memento. He's actually the avid photo organizer in our household, and I benefit from that. But it will be good for me to learn a few more tips about that so that I keep up with my regular maintenance of my photo collection, which I'm sure you ladies will talk about shortly. I also wanted to let you know that we'll be taking questions at the end. So the plan is that we'll have 60 minutes of a presentation from Mara and Joe. Then we'll have a Q&A session. We already have some questions from you, and Mara and Joe have woven some of those into their presentation. Anything that's left over, we can consider at the end for the Q&A. If you want to add some questions for the Q&A, please just type them into the chat window and I'll keep my eye on those and I'll feed them to the ladies at the end. You'll notice that I have turned off your audio and your video. That's because we actually are going to record tonight's session and that will then be made available to you guys. I'll be sending an email tomorrow morning with the details of how you can view the video, plus a few other surprises that we'll talk about at the end. But I suppose it would be polite for me to introduce myself. I'm Libby Jeffrey. I'm one of the co-founders of Memento and the marketing manager. And Memento really has been my baby and Jeff's baby for about 20 years now. But the one thing that never changes after 20 years is that so often we meet friends, customers, family who say, I wish I could get my photo collection organized. So my plan is that these ladies will rock your world tonight. They are the experts in Australia, the most established professional photo organizers in Australia, and you'll learn why very shortly. And tonight's session was inspired by the recent launch of our photo book services directory. Some of you, I believe, are not subscribed or registered with Memento. So I wanted to mention that, but yes, we have a directory that now gives you profiles and access to people who can help you with your photo digitization or scanning, organizing and photo book design. We've worked with the Filing Fairies for 10 years or more.
Yeah.
Roundabout, because they just celebrated their 10th birthday. So we can vouch that they are great at what they do. And I think now is a good time. We've got about 100 people online now. So I think it's the perfect time to hand over to you ladies to work your magic.
Okay. Thanks, Libby. So yes, I did my first photo book with Memento 15 or not quite 15 years ago when I got married. So yes, we've definitely had a long relationship. And then when we started the business, I was, straight off to get in touch to make that all happen. So What we're going to do tonight is a short presentation, Joe and myself, on photo management basics. And that whole presentation has been geared towards photo books, because that's what we're all about, is photo books. So a little bit about ourselves. I'm Mara, and Joe, as Libby mentioned, has the dark hair. And we are certified professional photo organisers with the photo managers. They're actually an American association, and there are over 800 photo managers across the world. There is a growing industry of us here in Australia, and we are celebrating 10 years in business this year. So we're basically out there to help all of you organise your photos so you can spend more time making memories rather than managing them. So that's a little bit about us. I have lost my view of the chat, so I'll just see if I can try and get that back. Oh, someone's monitoring it, so I'll just leave that alone for the moment. Okay, so an overview, not an interview. An overview of our presentation is that we're going to look at intentional photo taking. We're going to look at workflow, backup, settings, and photo book preparation. We did want to start today with a quick disclaimer on the presentation, is that we're presenting this to a really large group of people. As we noted, there was over 100 people. We're expecting 200, and we basically cannot be liable for the loss of any content where you do something based on what you hear in this general overview presentation, because everything needs to be catered to the individual, and you need individual consultational guidance or instruction. So we just wanted to make sure that we were clear on that before we got started. So this is a quote from a professor of psychology. This is Professor Linda Henkel, and she says, in order to remember, we have to access and interact with the photos rather than just amass them. So it's not just about taking fewer photos or taking photos in general. It's actually about engaging them. And we think the best way to engage or interact with photos is via a photo book. This artwork is from a Dutch artist, Eric Kessels, and he created an exhibition back in 2015, so slightly outdated, but he was trying to have a way of demonstrating what all the photos that had been posted on Flickr within a 24-hour period would look like if they were physically present in the world rather than digital. And the result was this ceiling high stack of over 1 million photos that required multiple rooms to hold. That's pretty old. Like I said, it's 7 years old. Flickr's actually been sold and is now a completely different website. But when the photo app Milio announced their World Digital Photo Forecast in 2016, I think it was, they said that there'd be 1.7 trillion photos taken that year, and that was going to be a 9% growth. We looked up those statistics again today, and in 2023, we are taking 5 billion photos per day. That is 5 billion photos every single day. Our clients usually come to us because their digital photo collection has gotten out of control, and we see those clients who are taking upwards of 1,000 photos a month, and that's not even a month when they're off on holiday or it's no special occasions involved. It's just a regular month. So we have our phones in our pocket. We have them in our wallet. They go everywhere that we go. But just because they go everywhere we go doesn't mean that we should be snapping away at every little thing. The sheer volume of photos that we're taking means that the ones that truly matter are getting lost and forgotten. And our photo taking habits are devaluing the photos that really matter. So if you think about the photos that you've taken last week, would you want those photos from last week to be kept in your photo collection? Would you want to pass them on to your children and your grandchildren? We think that it's important that you consider the longer term effect of what you're doing when you're taking your photos. If you can take fewer photos that matter more. You can think about this as think back to the analog days when you had an actual camera and you only had 24 shots on the reel. So to counteract those crazy statistics, we want you to be intentional in your photo taking habits. This photo was taken at a royal event, not the King's coronation, but a few years back at a parade. And this lady was experiencing life in real life. Everybody else in that photo was experiencing life through the lens. The other thing to remember is that one is enough. It only takes one photo to trigger a memory of an event or the memory of a moment. You don't need hundreds of photos to trigger your memory. You actually only need one. There's actual studies out there that have proven that the synapses in your brain are performing memory recollection functions better when all the senses have been engaged. One study sent 2 groups of students into a museum. One group was told, take as many photos as you like. The other group said, you're not allowed to take a camera into the museum. So both groups went into the museum. One group taking photos, selfies, all the rest of it. The other group, no cameras. After they came out of the museum, they were sat down, given a short test to see what they remembered from their experience in the museum. And I bet you could probably all guess who remembered more and who actually passed the test. It was the group that did not take photos, the group that had engaged their senses and were experiencing life in real life rather than through the lens. So I'm going to pass over to Jo now, and she's going to present some variables for you.
So we often get asked, what's the best way to organize my photos, or which program should I use? And our answer always is that it's different for everyone, because everyone's taking photos on different devices. Everyone has a different type of computer that they may be saving their photos to. Everyone may be using a different cloud storage space. Everyone will have different skills. So it really depends on your situation. And so in this presentation, we're not going to go into any one way to organize your photos. We are going to stay quite high level, but there is a basic workflow that you do need to follow when you are organizing your photos. That is common across every platform and for everyone. So we're going to go through that tonight as part of our workflow. So workflow, the meaning, the sequence of industrial, administrative, or other processes through which a piece of work passes from initiation to completion. So if probably a lot of us have done this, we've thought, okay, we're going to sit down, I'm going to start organizing our photos. And 20 minutes in, we've gone down the rabbit hole of, oh, look at that lovely memory, or, oh, there's a lot of, screenshots I can probably delete. And then we've just set it aside. That's all become too hard. I'll come back to that one day. But what we need to do, and a lot of the time too, people don't understand where they should start. How do I start? Do I start over here? Do I start over here? Where do I start here? So we're just going to go into this process and this workflow of how to start. We just need to outline the important distinction here between photo organizing and photo management. So photo organizing is a one-off project, and it can last weeks, it can last months, it can last years, depending on the size of your collection. And it is bringing all of the historical photos, whether they're analog and you're scanning them or they're digital, and it's bringing them into one place and organizing and curating them so that you have a manageable collection, which is the goal. That's everyone's goal. But we all need to realize that that is going to take time. It's taken you years and years and years to build this collection, and it's not going to happen in a week. So give yourself time, and it's going to happen in small chunks, depending on how much time you've got to dedicate to it. Photo management is what we sort of put to our monthly management or even daily management of our photo collections. So that's when we're maintaining what we're taking now and how we're staying on top of it. It's our maintenance of keeping on top of our photo collection once it's organized. Or it may be the other way around. Maybe you want to maintain now and you're going to go back and organize later. But the workflow is basically the same for both, whether you're looking at huge collection of organizing or whether you're looking at what just maintaining moving forward from now. There is one difference between photo organizing and photo management, and that is before you start your photo organizing journey, as in organizing your historical collection, please make sure you do an entire backup of that collection before you start. We hear often that people start organizing and they lose photos, or they accidentally delete them, or the hard drive fell off the desk and broke, or the CD that they went to plug in now no longer works. So please back up those photos, and it doesn't matter what sort of a mess it's in, just get it all onto a hard drive, and a local copy, not in cloud, just a local copy onto an external hard drive so that you have a backup to refer to if needed. Okay. So the workflow for both photo organizing and monthly management looks like this. Step one is to consolidate. So what does consolidate mean? Well, consolidate means get everything into one place. So whether that's, you could be the photo manager for your family, and maybe you have 5 or 6 different devices where you're taking photos each month. So you need to get all of that into one place and onto one drive. Maybe if it's your organizing project, you're looking at all different devices. Maybe you have photos on old computer hard drives. Maybe you have photos on CDs. Maybe you have them on old phones. So you need to consolidate all that into one location. And that may be part of that backup step as well, is the consolidate comes first, and then we're going to back that up before we go on to the curate and cull and organize. So step 2 of this workflow is then to curate and cull. So let's get down to, what do we really want to keep in this collection? There's probably going to be a whole lot of duplicates in that collection, and we see this all the time. So that duplicate process is part of this step 2. It may be getting rid of all the screenshots and those little everyday shots you take of the shopping list that you need to take out of that collection, so that you're getting that collection down to your family photo collection, or just what you want to keep long term. The step 3 is then to organize, and organize can look a bit different for everyone. Most of the time, organizing for digital collections means to organize chronologically, because that's the easiest way to organize digital photos, because we should be able to find the date that a digital photo was taken. If we can't, if it's corrupt, or maybe you didn't set the date on the camera correctly. We see that a lot back prior to sort of 2010, when we popped the battery back in the camera and the date's defaulted to the 1st of the 1st, 2004, and we have thousands of photos taken on that date. So, but usually we can find a date, and usually we organize digital collections by date. And the last step, once you have organized, and that organized step is going to take quite a while, but the last step is then to back up and get your backup plan in place. I'm going to go through those in a few more slides as well. Okay, so to the step 1 of consolidate, this is what we call a photo hub. And it's our hub that we go to where all of our photos are stored. So you need to think about where this hub's going to be if you don't already have one. This hub needs to be accessible. You need to be able to get to it pretty easily, because if it's too hard, you're not going to get to it. It needs to be reliable, and it needs to have enough storage capacity to hold your entire collection, plus some room for it to grow. Now, in saying this, I know a lot of people have laptops these days, and laptops don't have a lot of internal storage space. So maybe this hub for you is on an external hard drive that's plugged into your computer or your laptop. A hub is not a cloud storage space. A hub is a local copy downloaded to either your computer or an external hard drive. Right, just while we're on this, file transfer and sharing. One of the questions that came in for the presentation tonight was, how do I get my photos from my phone to my computer? What's the simplest way? Well, the simplest way is still just to plug it in. So grab your cord, your charging cord, plug your phone into your computer and transfer them across. I mean, there's lots of other ways that you can do it, but that is still the simplest way to do it. The only thing I will say about that there is that if you are using an iPhone and you're using iCloud Photo Library and your library is optimized, which a lot of you are going to say, what does that mean? It means that if your photos are going to iCloud and they are no longer stored on the internal drive of your phone, when you plug your phone into a computer, you will not see your entire collection as you see in your camera roll on your phone. So you may need to find another way to get those photos from your phone. But if you are using iCloud, well, there's your way. Sharing full resolution images and videos with others is another question that we get asked a lot. To keep full resolution and the metadata intact, the best way to share photos with others is via AirDrop or Bluetooth if you're nearby to them, or using shared albums and sharing them in a cloud platform. Please don't share photos if they mean something to you and you want to keep them into your collection. Please don't share them via a social media sharing platform such as WhatsApp or Messenger. The reason for this is that these programs strip the metadata, so they remove the date taken, the location, all of that important information that we use to organize our photos. It's removed on sharing for privacy reasons, as well as those images are compressed using those sharing applications. So when we talk about workflow, it's also daily maintenance. So this is Mara's little icons that she put together, where each day Mara sits down with her phone while she's having a coffee, and she goes through her photo collection and gets rid of the photos that she doesn't want to keep. And Mara and I have a funny chat going on where our children constantly take selfies of themselves on our phones when we're not looking, and we screenshot them and send them to each other because it happens very regularly. So, and we see this in people's collections as well, the accidental shots where you've taken 50 photos of your foot in the car. So please go through your collection and do this daily if you can, and if not weekly, just to clean up those photos in your collection before you bring them across to your photo hub and back them up and keep them in your collection long term. A really quick way to do this, and I've just got a screenshot here of an iPhone. Go into screenshots and it will see just all of your screenshots and you can delete those from there. Maybe it's the slow-mo ones that you want to delete as well. Maybe it's the selfies you want to have a look at. So you can narrow down just to those sort of images and find them and delete them from there. So now we're sort of got into that consolidate and curate and that daily maintenance. We're going to look, as part of organizing, is the duplicates. And it's another question that we get asked quite a lot is, what's the best way to get rid of duplicates from my collection? Well, there's lots of different duplicates. So duplicates can be exact duplicates. They're exactly the same file with exactly the same size, metadata, everything is the same. But then there's all these variations, so it can get a little tricky. So everything may be the same, except you've renamed one copy of the photo where the other copies are still IMG_123. Maybe they're exactly the same, except that you have RAW files and JPEG files. Maybe they are the same except for the date. For some reason, when you've brought them across to a drive, it has converted the date. Maybe they are the same except one has been compressed off for sending or for using in some kind of presentation or something like that. Maybe they are burst images where you hold your finger on your camera and take up to 10 shots at a time where they look very, very similar. So they are all sorts of duplicates. A really cool feature that came out with iOS 16 on the iPhone is that it now finds duplicates for you. So you can see that under utilities there in the screenshot I've got on the screen there. If you have duplicates in your collection, that word duplicates will appear. If you don't have duplicates in your collection, it won't appear, and well done. If it does, click on it and it's really easy to flow through and work that out. That said, the other way to do it, if you're not using an iPhone and you've brought your photos across from all different devices and you have duplicates, if you are using a Mac, we recommend the app called Photo Sweeper. And the other one that is Dupe Guru, which works on a Windows machine. Organizing. So we got a question about keywording and keyword tagging, which is fantastic that people are thinking about this. So keywords are words that you would apply to images so that you can search for them and easily find them later on. Keywords can be things like people, places, events, hobbies, or celebrations. And Adobe Bridge is a free program by Adobe that you can download from their website that will do this for you. You don't need to import your photos into Bridge. It's a little bit like Finder or File Explorer. It will just show you your images from where they are saved right now. And you can set up your keyword list and select the photos that you want to apply those keywords to. It's quite easy. It will take some time if you're obviously going through, a 50,000 file collection. It is going to take some time. But even if you start now, that's a great start if you want to use keywords in your collection moving forward. If you want to get an idea of how to use Adobe Bridge, Mara will post a link in the chat maybe towards the end about organizing photos with Adobe Bridge. It is a program run by a photo manager in the US, but it is a really good quick training on how to use Adobe Bridge. And like we said, it's a free program, so it's fantastic. Now we're getting up into backup now. So I just wanted to explain that there's a difference between a backup and a sync. Now we hear a lot when people say, oh yes, my photos are backing up to iCloud, or my photos are backing up to Google Photos. That is not a backup, that is a sync, okay? So a backup is a one-way process when you manually or automatically create a copy of your data from one location to a second location. It's going one way. A sync is short for synchronize, and it's a two-way process. That's to create consistency across devices. So if you are using Apple devices, when you take a photo on your iPhone, it will sync with your iPad or your laptop or your iMac. But if you delete from one of those devices, it will delete the photo from everywhere else as well if you are using iCloud. So you need to be really careful with that. Because ultimately, if you have your devices optimized in the settings, and we'll get to that in a minute, it is only one copy. It's not multiple copies. And it's very easy to delete those images when it's a sync happening. So just distinguish there between a backup and a sync. In the photo organizing world, we use what's called a 3-2-1 backup method. And a 3-2-1 backup method is where we have 3 copies of our photo collection, 3 identical copies of our photo collection. You might think that's overkill, but we do stand by this one. And it's stored on 2 different devices. So that may be, and I'll get to an explanation on the next slide. And one of those copies is stored offsite or in a different geographic location to your hub. So an example of that. So your digital photo hub, as we talked about when we consolidate and get everything in one place, could be on the internal drive of your computer. You then maybe on a regular basis, and this could be an automatic or a manual process, you could be doing a backup to an external hard drive that's plugged into your computer. Maybe you're using an offline service, such as Backblaze, to do your backup for you. As long as if you're going to do that manually, please have a reminder in your calendar to remind you to do it, because we find that people have good intentions, but get sidetracked with life and then forget to do this manual backup. So please put a reminder in your calendar, whether that's once a month, to do the backup manually. Then there's copy 3. Now this one can be a cloud backup as long as that's one way. It's not a sync as long as it's going one way. Or it could be a second external hard drive that you're storing off-site somewhere else. Maybe it's at your office or a family member or friend's house. So if something happens to your home and your hub, you have a backup somewhere else. Phone settings. Now, all these phones are different and we use all our phones in different ways, but we are now 92.5% of photos taken every day are taken on a smartphone. So I can't remember the last time I got my actual digital camera out to take a photo. I would love to do it, but it's just so big that it just doesn't happen anymore. So we are taking most of our photos on our phones, and they do take good photos now. So let's have a look at the settings on those. So for iPhone users, you need to be aware of what iCloud is and the settings within iCloud. When you're using iCloud, there are actually two different storage spaces you need to look at now. You're going to be looking at the internal storage space of your phone, but you're also going to be looking at, and maybe you're paying for storage space with iCloud. So there's two different things to look at there. If you are using iCloud on your phone, you need to go in and have a look at the settings, which look like this screenshot on the right. And iCloud Photo Library on your phone or your iPad can be, also on your Mac, can be optimized or downloaded. What optimized means is that it stores a little thumbnail version of your photos on your phone in your camera roll, but it offloads the full resolution files to iCloud to free up space on the internal drive of your phone. And this is what I mentioned earlier, how do you get your photos from your phone to your computer? Some of you may have encountered when you've plugged the phone into the computer and your phone may say that you have 5,000 images on the phone in the camera roll, but when you've actually plugged it in, it's only transferred across maybe 1,000. That's because your phone no longer has the 5,000 full resolution files stored on the internal of the phone, and it's offloaded 4,000 to iCloud, and it's only kept 1,000 on the phone. Now, which 1,000 has it kept on there? Who knows? We don't really know. It's probably the ones that you interact with most, or the most recent ones, and it probably offloads the bigger files to free up space on the phone. But if you are going to use the method of plugging your phone in to your computer to download your photos, you will need to have that download and keep originals switched on. If you are using a Mac and using the Photos application for your photos, I do stress that you should have this download and keep original switch on your computer. Because if you are using a backup program such as Time Machine, it will not be backing up your photo collection, your entire photo collection, because this is not downloaded to your computer. I'll leave that there. It's very, very technical there. With iPhone as well, you may have encountered something called HEC files, high efficiency files. Now, since around September 2017, Apple took on a new photo format called high efficiency. Now, it is smaller file sizes and then a JPEG file, but it has meant that sometimes when you send them, it will convert them to JPEG if you're sending them to non-iPhone users. But sometimes there was an issue there for a little while where you couldn't read HEC files on a Windows machine, but they've overcome that now. Camera modes, live and bursts. So we see this a lot, and I was only looking at it today with a client's collection. The live feature on your phone takes two files when you take an image using the live feature. It's taking a still JPEG image, and it's taking a 2 to 4 second video file as well. Now that's taking up extra amount of space on your phone or in your cloud storage space. So if you love that feature, okay, leave it on. If you're not really aware of what's happening there, just be aware of how to turn that off in the camera. It's in the top right-hand corner. It looks like a sun. If it's off, it's got a line through it. It is going to take up extra storage space in your collection. And if you are using a Windows machine, when you're bringing them across, you will see two files, a movie file and a JPEG file with the same file name. Bursts is the other one we see quite a bit, where you're holding your finger down and you're taking a series of shots in about 3 seconds. You may want to review those bursts in your Photos app, and you can select which out of those 10 you want to keep and discard the rest, because that is taking up 10 images in your collection as well, file size. And we talked about the new duplicates feature as well within Apple Photos for iPhone users. Android users. So Google Photos is what we hear a lot if people recommend Google Photos. We unfortunately don't recommend Google Photos much at all. There's a couple of reasons for that. It was free for a while for their storage space, but it did change I think it was July last year, where they did start charging you for anything you're adding to your Google collection. And you just need to be aware of the original quality versus storage saver, because it will be compressing your images. And once they've gone from your Android phone to Google Photos, we can't get those full. I mean, it's not a huge difference in the file size, but we do always want to keep the best quality images that we have, the highest resolution. So just be careful with those settings in Google Photos. The other reason we don't recommend Google Photos is that there isn't an easy way to download them from Google Photos. It can get a little tedious when you have to log in and download albums or 500 images at a time. Unfortunately, there's no program to sync from Google Photos down to your computer easily. There is Google Takeout, where it will take out your entire photo collection out of Google, but it sends it to you in little zip files. So that's just a couple of reasons that we don't usually recommend Google Photos for your photos. If you're using it, fine, just be aware of that. And you may want to look at how you're downloading them to the computer and getting them backed up in your hub. Also look at the camera modes there again as well, live, burst, all those sort of things, and how you're using those in your collection. Phone settings. Now, many of us use WhatsApp to share images or Instagram to share images. When they come into your photo collection, they are very small files. They're not really files that we probably want to keep in our collection long term. So just there's some setting screenshots there on how to turn it off from coming into your camera roll. Sometimes if someone shares an image with you via WhatsApp, it automatically saves it into your camera roll. There is a way there of how to turn it off. So the last slide I've just got here is knowing your computer settings as well. Where are your photos being stored on your computer, and how do you access them? Are they always going to one location? Is it the pictures folder in your computer? Is it the documents folder? Are they just on the desktop? Where are they going? Have you got a hub for them in your computer of where they're going? And is there a strategy there on how you're saving them? We do find that people lose track of when's the last time I plugged my phone in or brought them across. So they're bringing everything across again. So just having a system in place there to avoid that as well. And that comes down to probably monthly maintenance. So if you are doing your photo maintenance monthly, you are only backing up your photos from the month prior. You're not going back and downloading everything that you've taken on your phone. You're only looking at what you've taken in the last month because you did the backup the month before. Mara and I both have reminders in our calendars, and we do encourage most of our clients to put a reminder in their calendar on the 1st of every month to do our photo maintenance for the month before. Yes, sometimes we get busy and it gets, dismissed for a few days, but we usually get to it and we do our monthly maintenance, which takes us about, I don't know, Mara, for you, how long does it take your monthly maintenance for photo collection?
Probably 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's all it is every month. If you're just maintaining, we're doing that daily maintenance.
I do it daily. Yeah, I'm doing it daily.
Then it's just gathering the family's photo taking devices and bringing them all into our hub, doing some tagging, getting our backups in place, and we're done for the month. I'm going to hand over to Mara now while I have a break.
Thanks, Jo. So with all that digital dilemma in mind, if you take a look at the screen now and have a look at some of the different types of devices there, who remembers the floppy disk? We actually still come across floppy disks, believe it or not. There's usually like 4 or 5 photos on each floppy disk. Then, of course, we graduated into the CDs. CDs also, people probably aren't aware that they do have a lifespan and they become redundant, and they can stop working. If at the moment, if you buy a new computer, a new laptop, by all means, you definitely do not get a floppy disk drive, not a floppy disk, or a CD drive on a laptop. They just don't make computers that way anymore. We've seen the advent of the USB, and of course, then there's the 2 different types of USBs. There's the faster ones and that Apple have introduced, the USB-C. I never remember which one it is, but those all coming in. There's different hard drives. The original external hard drives, we've now moved on to solid state drives, which are much faster, and the technology is always changing. So you've probably at some stage wondered if your children or your grandchildren will actually be able to view a JPEG on a computer in the future. Think about how many different types of phones you've had in your lifetime. I can't promise you that a JPEG file or a high efficiency file or whatever type of photo file that you've got on your computer will stand the test of time, but I can guarantee you that in 50 years' time, your grandchildren and great-grandchildren will have hands and eyes, have hands to touch with and eyes to see with. And that is why we always encourage all of our clients to get themselves organized so that they can print and protect their photos and make a photo book. And of course, we always say, let's do that with Memento. So how do we go about that? Of course, we've all watched a cooking show on the TV, right? We've seen how all the ingredients are set out there in their little bowls. They're all measured out. Everything's chopped. Everything's ready to be assembled. And then they just whip up this amazing dish and they do it live on camera in a 5-minute section of the after the news. And it's so fast and it's live. We want you to think about making those same kinds of preparations for creating a photo book, because we all know how frustrating it can be if you set out to make a meal and you go in the middle of it and you realize you're missing an ingredient. The same thing can happen with your photo books. If you're starting out, you're all excited, you're all enthusiastic, the momentum is there, you started to design this photo book and you get stuck because you want to include a photo, but you can't find it. And then you never come back to that project. So part of the preparation for photos is knowing exactly what to look for your project. So most people will automatically think of digital photos, but we would like you to remember not to exclude any of your outdated media from your thought process when you're thinking about a photo book. You can still include slides, negatives, loose prints, prints in frames, albums, all the rest of it. Travel itineraries is a big one, tickets, maps. If you want to have all of those things, you can still have them in your photo book. You just need to be able to convert them into digital versions to get them into a photo book, which is going to involve scanning. And we've got some information on the next slide about scanning. So this is also on Memento's website. There's some information about this as well. These are from their recommendations and we know from the scanners, we've got 4 of them, but every scanner is different and you need to try and match as best you can these settings so that you can get 600 dots per inch or DPI, so that if you wanted to enlarge that photo to fill the whole page, it is going to be there and it'll be available in the best format possible. The other thing is to save your scanning. When you're scanning, save your files as a JPEG with a minimum quality setting of 80%. Sometimes different scanners will default to a lower than that. So just another thing to check in your scanner when you're doing that. And always wear cotton gloves and handle with care, because your little fingers have oily fingerprints in them and you might not see them on the print itself, but as soon as you put it on a high quality scanner, those fingerprints will come up and be visible on your digital version. So you want to make sure you wear those, wear those gloves. So have a think about all the different places your digital photos might actually be. And of course, the thing to keep in mind here is, what kind of project am I doing? And what is the purpose of your project? What is the theme of your book? And so you've got all those ingredients, think about where those photos might be stored and start to go and get them. There's lots of different places: cameras, smartphones, tablets, sometimes even kids' toys have cameras on them, video cameras, GoPro, hard drives, flash drives, memory cards, desktop computers, CDs, DVDs, all the different cloud places, and email as well. By making a checklist of all these places, that'll prevent you having to run to the shop and get that missing ingredient later on when you're finally starting to get into your design mojo. So gather that list and prepare it before you even start designing. So we talked about the high efficiency files. At the moment, Memento photo book software accepts as JPEG, TIFF and PNG files. So if your photo was captured with in that HEC format, you will need to convert the image before you're actually able to get it into the software. Again, Memento's got some helpful information on their website about how to convert your HEC files. Oh, and there you go. There's some good news that they'll accept HEC in a few weeks. But in the meantime, if you need to, iMazing is an excellent HEC converter and it's free. So it's very free and easy and quick. You can just drag them in there and it will convert those HEC files into JPEG so that you can get them into your photo books. The other thing, once you've scrounged around on all those different locations, is you need to start thinking about which photos you're going to use. So we recommend that you would locate all the images that you might use in your photo book and copy them into a project folder. So you might create a project folder called My Wedding Book, and you'll go to your sister and get the photos from your sister, and then you'll go to the hard drive that someone else gave you, and you'll go to the website and download from the professional photos, get them all into the one project folder. Then as you're looking through them, because you've copied them, you're going to copy them all into the project folder. Then once you've got them all in there, you can actually start to look at some culling, which we'll talk about in a minute. And the biggest tip we can give you in this section of when you're just copying them over is to not get sidetracked with any cropping or editing. You're just copying them into that place for the moment, remembering that Memento software's got some great editing tools. And unless you're a whiz at editing, you actually shouldn't need to edit anything before you import them. The tools that you can use in Memento should be enough for most people. So copy them all into a project folder, ready to go. At this stage, you're going to have one project folder with all your raw ingredients. So you're looking at your kitchen bench, and that kitchen bench might be weighed down with packets of flour and sugar, for example. They might weigh in at 3,000 images. You need to have a stop and have a think about it. How many photos can I actually afford to put in my book? You need to have a think about how am I going to start culling that down? So if you think you've chosen 4,000 images and you're going to create a 100-page book, that's 40 images per page. That's a lot of images. Whereas if you've got 400 images in a 100-page book, that's only 4 images per page. Now they're averages, but that's obviously a mental calculator that you can do. The other thing to think of is that, well, maybe a 100-page book is out of your budget. So then again, you need to cull again. A technique that I like to use when I'm helping people with their culling, when they're looking at their photo book project, is to try and keep it all on one screen. Try not to work from a mobile phone. That's never going to work with any success. Definitely on a computer screen. If you've got your thumbnail set to say medium, you should be able to see all of them as a thumbnail on one screen and work with them in one screen. That's going to be the easiest way to work with. The other rule you can work with is a rule of, that's what I call the rule of 7. So if you're looking through all your photos and you're having trouble deciding, should I keep this photo or should I exclude this photo, you can look at the photo and you have to rank it out of 10, but you're not allowed to rank it 7. So if you had to rank something between 1 and 10, not allowed to use the number 7. That way you know that if, oh, well, I'd only give it a 6, then that's a delete photo. If you're going to give it an 8, well, then maybe that's a keep photo. So it's just a little trick that I like to use to sort of force your hand into making a decision about whether to keep it in or leave it out. The other one is, of course, to keep your story in mind and remember why why you're wanting to put the photo and what the whole purpose of your entire book is. So that's all when you're doing your culling. So like any book, a photo book subject could be broken down into chapters, and that can help you order your images. Most people will automatically think about chronological, and they'll by date and year and events and seasons. But travel books, you can do cities and countries. Family albums you can do by family members. School albums you can do by year. We like an A to Z book, and we've done quite a few of these in the past. It can force your hand. I actually did my wedding book as an A to Z. So rather than having chronological, my wedding album was the A to Z of my wedding, and it made me think outside the square and keep it a little bit more interesting. When you're having a look at your favorite magazine or an Instagram account or a Pinterest board or someone else's photo book, when you're planning your own book, something to keep in mind are all the different elements that actually appeal to you. What is it that appeals to you? Is it the size of the photo? Is it the number of photos per page? Is it that the story, are there a lot of words? Is the text big? Is there any text? Is the text fancy, or is it plain? How would you describe it? What's the cover? Does it have a dust jacket? Is it a printed cover? What does the paper feel like? All of these things are things that you would be asking yourself as you plan and think about in the lead up to getting into your book. Excuse me. And the other thing we like to remind people is not to forget to allow some space in your book, and this is going to influence the number of photos that you have per page, for storytelling. Now, there isn't any right or wrong when it comes to adding the story elements to your photo book, but a caption can be pretty Captain Obvious. If you look at the caption on the left here, it says that it's Billy and he's fly fishing, and you could see that. Whereas the story on the right gives the who, when, where, what, why, and how of the reasons behind we thought this photo was worthy of going in the book. And it was because, Grandpa Bill took his namesake Billy for his first fly fishing lesson, and then 5 minutes after the photo was taken, he tripped and fell into the water. So there's no photo of that. That's a much more interesting and relevant story as to why it's actually made the cut into the photo book. This is like the equivalent of the writing that you find on the back of old photos. And if it wasn't for that writing on the back of photos, you wouldn't understand the significance of why they've been kept. So similar situation here, you've got to put some information in there so that people understand why you've included it in your book. And it gives future generations a more meaningful reference point, and they'll definitely be more likely to keep your book. Another hot tip is for those that journal, or something that I weave into my monthly photo maintenance, is to make a journal entry each month. So this is a template version of what I use in my annual photo book that I make for my family every year. And it includes a hero photo and a summary of basically what happened that month. I don't know about you, but I can struggle to remember what happened last week. So remembering what happened, if I was to sit down and do my photo book a year later, it becomes very, very hard to remember what happened. So that consistent journaling, and I'm just dumping that journaling into a Word document that I can copy and paste into my photo book each year, saves me a lot of time and makes my photo book planning and preparation much, much quicker when I come to do it each year. So just to recap, we definitely talked about intentional photo taking, and we would like to reiterate that is by far and away the most important thing that you can do. Prevention is better than cure. If you have less photos, take less photos, you'll have less photos to manage. It's the same as you could apply that rule to anything in your house, really. If you have less clothes, you'll have less washing to do. So definitely less is more. Having some kind of workflow that is applicable to you as the individual is important. Definitely having some kind of backup in place. Knowing your settings. Everyone's settings are different. You might have an iPhone and a PC, or an iPhone and an Apple Mac computer, or a Windows computer and an Android device. And even just the settings on those devices is very different for everybody. Everyone is having and has a unique setup, and you need to know your own unique setup to make it work for you. And going through all those things with photo book preparation, one thing I did forget to mention was the family book that I did for my mum for her 70th. I went so far as to not only create a project folder, I even broke that project folder down into smaller subfolders, because my mum's one of 11 children. And so rather than having to work from a really large batch of photos and figure out which brother or sister was in which photo, by taking the time to create some subfolders for each brother and sister, I was able to then only have to work with one subfolder at a time. And you can do that with chapters in any photo book, and then only have to work from one subfolder at a time. And that makes a really big difference to the amount that you're scrolling through in your Memento software. It makes a big difference. So that's a part of photo book preparation. I'll pass back to Jo for a second because I'm going to start coughing.
Okay, so that's near the end of our presentation for tonight. We're nearly on an hour now. So we just wanted to go through some of the services and what we actually do here at the Filing Fairies. Our services include a done for you, where we basically do everything for you. We can do the custom book design for you if it's all too difficult, or you just need something done really quickly. We also take on doing digital photo organizing projects. So if you've got all of those bits and pieces on different devices, hard drives, CDs, all that sort of things, and you need to get them all in one place and organized and help with backup, we do that as well. We also offer coaching, because obviously done for you comes with a bit of a higher price tag because it's a bigger project. But with coaching, we do online and in person for the Sutherland Shire, but online digital photo assessments, and give you an action plan based on your unique situation, where we can come up with a plan on taking your photo collection from where it is now and getting it to where you want it to be. We can then, if you can take that away, that action plan away, and work on it yourself. You maybe want some ongoing digital coaching. So maybe you get started and you have some more questions. So we'll jump on another call and have another coaching session. Mara also offers photo book planning and proofing sessions as well, because she is the photo book guru of the Filing Fairies. And so she offers those sessions where she can help you with planning, getting that all set up, and proofing your book at the end and giving you some suggestions on how to improve.